So, welcome back to another episode of Lepide CISO Talks, where we explore the biggest challenges in cybersecurity, data protection, and risk management. Today, we're joined by Craig Taylor, who is a seasoned cybersecurity expert, entrepreneur, and thought leader with nearly 3 decades of experience helping businesses from Fortune 500 giants to SMBs mitigate cyber risk. He's the co-founder and CISO of CyberHoot, a company revolutionizing cybersecurity awareness training through positive reinforcement instead of fear-based tactics. He's here to break down the biggest cybersecurity threats businesses face today, the psychology behind why people fall for phishing attacks, and how companies can build a true culture of cybersecurity. Whether you're a business leader, IT professional, or just someone who's tired of resetting their password every 90 days and still not feeling secure, this episode is for you. Without further ado, Craig Taylor, welcome to the Lepide CISO Talks.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Vitaly. I'm really excited to be here, and that was a wonderful introduction. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it's great to have you with us. Thank you very much. I was going through your media pack, and there is so much to unpack, but I suppose, the highlight is the pieces around the cybersecurity awareness training and human risk management. So probably a good place to start would be kind of understanding maybe why traditional cybersecurity training is broken and how can we fix it?
That's probably one of the foundational challenges the entire cybersecurity industry faces today. And I'm not sure where cybersecurity went wrong or when this started, but in my 30-year career, I've come to learn that cybersecurity programs suffer from a number of problems. Many cybersecurity professionals are in the business of saying no, right? Instead of, yes, but we can do it this way. When it comes to educating end users, to your question, we often find the tools that are given to us, the biggest tools on the market, are all designed to reduce bad behaviors through negative reinforcement. It's the essence, the best analogy is training dogs. You can use a shock collar to reduce barking or to keep them in the yard, but it doesn't always work and no one enjoys it. Many people think you shouldn't put that on the dog. You shouldn't do that. You should reward them with treats. That's common sense. But
Hmm.
why is that common sense absent in cyber literacy, cybersecurity, and the programs that we build? That's really the foundational challenges of this emerging market. It just hasn't grown up well enough to understand. We can be the departments of yes. However, we need to do it in this particular way to protect our data, protect our networks, protect our investments. And we need to do it with treats. We need to train employees with positive reinforcement, rewarding good behaviors, educating what those good behaviors are instead of just only punishing negative clicking. Stop clicking, don't click. I don't want you to learn why. I want you to just don't click.
Yeah, certainly I prefer treats than than being punished. But why do you think that kind of fear-based punishment training, why does that typically fail?
Well, it doesn't teach the real skills that you need. When you're sending out fake email phishing, for example, you're sending out emails that have a domain name that does not reflect how hackers hack. In other words, they'll typo squat a domain name. I've been part of dozens of business email compromise and wire transfers of up to $1 million being sent to the wrong place. Inevitably, the hacker registers a domain with an S on the end or something really benign in the email addresses after breaking into the CFO's email and moves the conversation right over to that new domain, and no one's smart enough to figure it out. Even when they say, oh, our bank's under audit and you need to send the money over to this new account. That happens time and time and time again. In fact, the FBI says it's probably one of the most underreported crimes in the world is this wire fraud crime. And it always uses these domain names that have been registered for 3 weeks. They have a simple type of squatting on them, and no one knows why. But when we send fake emails, we're sending it from a domain name so far removed from reality that people become accustomed to, oh, I can spot phishing. I'm really good at this. I just look at that. I saw this one as well today, Vital. You like this one. There was an IT pro in a Reddit thread. He goes, these are so dumb. I know that the phishing vendors, to get them to my inbox, put a header in, an X header, and I just search for that and delete the message. I never fall for them because I never get them. I
Mhm.
just delete them without even looking. So there's no training. So people are getting around the system because A, they don't like it, B, they don't believe in it, and C, they're not learning anything. That's why it's failing. And that's why, truthfully, why there's so many breaches in the world. It's still the number one, according to Verizon's data breach report in 2023. They did a 20-year look back and they said, hey, guess what, everyone? In 2003, phishing was the number one way companies were breached. And in 2023, it remains the number one way companies are breached. Now, they added that the consequences of a breach in 2023 are far worse. There's something called double extortion. They
Mhm.
will encrypt your files and they'll exfiltrate them from the business. So they leave the company. And then if you don't pay to get your files back because you got good backups, they said, well, guess what? We're going to release it to the internet. And if you're an accounting firm, a law firm, a healthcare provider, anyone with critical sensitive data, that is horrible to hear. You end up paying the ransom, right? That's what's happening.
Remember in the last episode, I told you I started trying Magic Mind? It's that little productivity shot with matcha, adaptogens, and nootropics. Well, quick update for you. I've been taking it pretty consistently now for about 2 weeks, and honestly, it's been a bit of a game changer. Don't get me wrong, I still love my coffee, but pairing it with Magic Mind has made my mornings way more focused, and it doesn't come with that mid-afternoon crash I used to get. I've noticed I'm less scattered when I'm switching between meetings, deep work, and then recording this show. For anyone in the cybersecurity space or just juggling a lot all at once, it's actually helped me stay sharper and calmer, especially during the chaos. If you want to try it, head over to magicmind.com/CISO APR and use the code CISO APR at checkout for a nice discount. That's magicmind.com/CISO APR and the code is CISO APR. Yeah, it's a sorry state of affairs. Certainly, yeah, phishing is big, and a lot of it comes down to, like social engineering and human behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think, from a psychological perspective, why are people still falling for phishing attacks? And is there any way of fixing it?
Absolutely. You have to provide positive reinforcement of the good behaviors you want to see, right? It's not enough to say don't click because people just become anxious, fearful, inefficient in processing email. And the IT department gets flooded with messages. Hey, Vitali, is this a fish? Is that a fish? I don't want to make a mistake, but I can't tell. Instead, teach them the skills, teach them how to fish. I don't know if it's all right to mention my company, but that's what we do. We put together a set of 6 or 7 questions in a
Hmm.
simulated environment where we can actually typo squat domain names. And we ask people to choose, is this safe or suspicious? And they
Hmm.
have to inspect the URL. And if they need help, it's open book. It actually says, well, hackers can email you from the domain of netflix.com, for example. So look for typo squatting. And if you look really carefully, we might drop the I in Netflix. So at first glance, if you're used to the completely erroneous domain names in the fake email testing, you'd say, I promise you it came from netflix.com. That's why I clicked, but it's missing an I. And that's the kind of thing hackers do. Now, understand, hackers do this for a period of a week at most with a particular domain like that. They get reported once, that domain is taken down by the domain name authorities, and it's never to be seen again. But they've done a lot
Hmm.
of damage in those 5 or 7 days. Okay. So this is the way hackers hack. So then you go into the subject and the greeting and the spelling, punctuation, and grammar. But the really big one that we teach a lot of people have said to me, Craig, now I understand phishing. I didn't get it before, but now I get it. The urgency, emotionality, or fear of missing out that hackers build into their phishing campaigns is designed to get you to react to things. Because if you thought about it for even a 30-second period or even 5 seconds, you might respond very differently and say, this doesn't make any sense. Why would I get an invoice to open from my friend over at that other company when I never get invoices? I'm not in accounting. It doesn't make sense. But I trusted him. I know them. And so you react to things, you make mistakes. You have to think about it. So we reinforce all of these behaviors that you want to adopt, boosting them, right? You want to increase good behaviors. If you look a year ago, winner of America's Got Talent, this is a weird segue, but the winner was a dog trainer.
Mhm.
And all around this whole performance, the crowd was going wild, the dog was shaking its tail, and the trainer had a pocket full of treats. So he'd do an exercise and he'd give a treat to the dog and another treat to the dog, and the dog was having a blast. And that's why they won. There was not a single negative thing about this whole performance. And that's how we need to think about our employees. We need to treat them like human beings, better than the dog. Give them treats for doing good behaviors and for understanding and learning how to fish with all of these positive reinforcement methodologies. It's a psychology phenomenon. Its a background is in operant conditioning. You may have heard of
Mhm.
Pavlov's dog.
Yeah,
They
yeah, I was just
salivate when
thinking
they
that.
get treats, but it's really that simple. You got two sides of a coin. Negative reinforcement reduces bad behaviors. Positive reinforcement increases good behaviors. That's what you need to do, because if there's a squirrel, rabbit, or skunk across the street and you've got a shot collar on your dog, guess what? They're still going to go through that invisible fence and go get that animal. And if an employee gets a really good fish and it's really appealing, it might be created by AI, it might be spear phishing, it might talk about something they posted on their social media,
Mhm.
all bets are off because it makes so much sense to click. It's too appealing. They can't help themselves. So if you teach them quickly to just do one thing, look at the sender. Did this even come from the CEO of your company to buy gift cards, or is it from outside the company? And in a split second, they can have the knowledge to delete that, just move on with their day and not become a victim.
Yeah, I mean these phishing campaigns are getting more and more sophisticated or creative, should I say. I remember when I started at Lepide and there was, one example they were telling us that they used a local coffee shop as kind of the bait because they knew that the employees of this company used to always go to this coffee shop. So they put it in an email and said, here's, a few pounds off your next coffee, and they all fell for it. Do you know what I mean? So it's
Human
that
behavior.
social, that's a getting into like a spear phishing. It's really targeted, and it's getting more and more difficult to discern between what's real and what's fake, especially with the advent of AI. And you get a lot fewer of those grammar and spelling mistakes, with poorly educated hackers writing these things. Is it getting more difficult to defend against that?
I think the telltale signs still exist. The sending domain is a telltale sign, the urgency and emotionality, the obfuscation of links in the email. If you get a QR
Hmm.
code in an email, all bets are off. Don't scan it, don't click it. If you get a bit.ly link, take a long URL and shrink it to 5 letters, bit.ly, and then another 3 or 4 characters.
Hmm.
Don't click that link. If you really have to go out to whatever the vendor's website is purporting to offer you free coffee at the coffee shop, go to Google, go to ChatGPT, which can search the internet now and bring you back to that coffee shop. You could even ask for coupons that might already exist out there.
Yeah.
Never trust what you get. This happens even in human lives, right? On our doorstep, there's an attack that we blogged about at CyberHoot where you can get a package on your doorstep shipped from Amazon or one of the vendors out there, and all it has is this high value item and a
Hmm.
QR code in it. There's no indication of who it was sent from or any of that. They know you're going to scan the QR code, and it's going to bring you to a login website at the vendor, of course, of choice, but it's not their website.
Hmm.
And they're going to steal your credentials to get into that website and then order things on your,
It's
credit
that
card enabled account.
it's that curiosity, isn't it? It's just like,
Mm-hmm.
who sent me this free item, even if it's not that high value. People just want to find out. They want to scan it, and yeah, then they're too far down the rabbit hole, so to speak. And that actually reminds me when we had the setup call for this session, we're sending us some links in the chat, and before I said, this would be a great ruse if you were actually sending us phishing links and this was all part of
Yes, but
part of your approach.
I have to be honest. I know I researched, Lepide, and I researched your little Vitaly. I know you guys are cybersecurity professionals, so it would take a lot more to trick you into clicking bad links than that. But you did ask, and I said, well, just go research the link if you like.
it did look legitimate, but yeah, it was, I did have to ask just because,
You can't be
you
too
never know.
careful.
You can't be too careful. I follow this one YouTuber who, he talks about cryptocurrency and so on, and he actually had something like around $100,000 siphoned from, his wallets because he was on a call with who he thought were some investors or something that wanted to partner with him, and he was doing a screen share, and they said, oh, can you, because we're going to record for this next part, can you go and change your t-shirt or the top that you're wearing so you look more professional? He went away, and in the meantime they had actually accessed his device, stole all his credentials, and then he started seeing these withdrawals and all these alerts, by which point it was too late. But I mean,
See, that should never
it's
happen because
wild.
those withdrawals and alerts should not be possible without
Hmm.
a second factor, something you
Hmm.
have and something you know, or something you use, like one of these things. You have to physically be present to get
Hmm.
authorize a transfer
Yeah.
when you're sending money around. Absolutely.
Yeah. And on that sort of password and authentication piece, we're all guilty of it, reusing passwords and using kind of like the Google Chrome password manager and things.
Hmm.
Are those things safe? What's your take on
Not
that?
at all. No, you should not use Google Chrome password manager. Websites can impersonate other websites and they can reach in and grab your authentication there. You really need a purpose-built password manager. You said we all do this. I haven't done that for a decade. I don't want to be
Sure,
in that
yeah.
boat. I'm sure you don't too. But those listening to this, I can show you a dark web, a couple of databases on the dark web. You can go to haveibeenpwned.com, PWNED, put in your oldest personal email address. You'll see how many times your data has been exposed, including what kinds of data. And if your password's there and you're not on a password manager, I would bet a lot of money that I could find your latest password variation from one password that's been breached in the past. My own personal account has been breached probably 20, not breached, I want to say very specifically, been exposed 28 times on different websites that themselves have been hacked. Some of those websites hashed the password so you can't reverse engineer it back to the origin. Most of them did not, because I've been around as long as the planet had before the World Wide Web existed. That's how long I've been doing stuff. So I had a long history. You have to adopt a password manager. Just set a very strong master password and tie it to multi-factor. And that multi-factor should probably not be SMS anymore. As we heard from the FBI last fall, all the US cell phone networks are compromised by foreign nationals. It's probably true in Europe. It's probably true every part of the world. So you can't trust SMS. There's just too many ways to hack it. So a token or an authenticator app on your phone, those are all good options.
Great. Well, I mean, we are a CISOs focused show after all, and I know you do like to talk on the topics of vCISOs and
Yes.
help how those help with SMB cybersecurity strategy. I mean, what role does a vCISO play, and why do SMBs and other organizations need them?
So to answer that question, we have to look at supply and demand. The supply of competent, experienced CISOs is very, very finite. You can't find them. And most of the time, you can't find them because the enterprises of the world have hired them away at 2 and 3 and 400,000 a year salary. It's enormous salaries. But most companies, if you're a mid-market, let's say you have 500 or fewer employees, would you hire a full-time doctor for your staff? Would you hire a full-time lawyer for your staff? No. An electrician or plumber? No. Why do you feel you need to hire a full-time CISO? You don't. You need a part-time one who can come in and start with a risk assessment, because we know every company out there has finite time and money. And if you want to spend your time and money on the right things, as from a risk perspective to remediate and reduce risk, you can't go based on the vendors you talk to who say this is the most critical risk and the silver bullet to fix it. You have to have an independent opinion by someone like a virtual CISO who incidentally supports dozens of companies out there, has best practices, worst practices, breaches and exposures and close calls and no calls in their experience because they are supporting multiple companies. So they bring the best of all worlds to you for a few hours a month to, a dozen hours a month, helping you build your cybersecurity program, identify risk, quantify it based on impact, probability, materiality to your business. Those three things are great ways to bubble up the most critical risks. And then what I would say to anyone listening to this is sometimes you have to go back to your finance and your C-suite to say, look, we had allocated this much money to address risk. And we have this list of 10 critical risks that could get done in 3 years. Are we okay with 3 years of remediation time to get rid of these big 10 risks that have high probability, high impact, and are material to our business? Or do we need to take this amount of money and say, let's at least have it. Let's do it in 18 months and we'll get rid of most of those big risks. A lot of the risks we find in our vCISO work, though, Vitaly, is very simple and easy to solve. The companies aren't training their employees on cybersecurity and cyber literacy. They haven't adopted simple technical measures like a password manager, enabled multi-factor. Oh my God, on MFA. Even this year, I was on a breach at a law firm that had an SSL VPN with no MFA on it. I couldn't believe it. It's 2025, folks. If you don't have MFA, multi-factor authentication turned on in your VPN, I don't know how you haven't been breached to this point, and EDR, and endpoint detection and response that goes beyond AV. And then they're not phishing their employees with positive reinforcement phishing simulations like we do at CyberHoot. They're doing nothing at all. Or if they're doing something, it's the occasional fake email phish if they can get it working, because it's very troublesome. And Microsoft just stopped supporting something called DMI in February. Have you heard this, Vitaly? Vendors used to be able to directly inject through direct message injection, bypassing all the, spam filters from Proofpoint and Mimecast or Barracuda or any of these that basically filter out all the spam. You have to bypass those things to get an email over SMTP into the inbox. It's very difficult, cumbersome, and time consuming. And it breaks all the time because Microsoft and Google changed the rules. And so it's working one day, then it's not the next. And it takes so much time and energy and effort, not to mention the tools and how you configure them. They have all kinds of options. It can be a real daunting task. So most companies aren't doing that. The nice advantage of the Hootfish positive reinforcement is that it's 100% automated. You don't even have to do a single whitelisting or allow listing to get them to the inboxes because there's nothing malicious in the email going there. In these other cases, they're impersonating Netflix with a domain like, we want to share your data.com. It's so obviously not Netflix that people, it just doesn't have a benefit. It doesn't work.
Yeah, less of a real world example. So it sounds like the SMBs with the virtual CISOs, they're getting a lot of sort of bang for their buck, so to speak. Is there enough time given to them though? How many other clients are these CISOs working with, and how is the kind of the response time if something does actually happen? Have there ever been any instances where it hasn't quite been up to scratch in terms of the service offering?
So it's a valid concern, Vitaly. You're absolutely right. When you hire a vCISO, you don't want to hire a lone wolf vCISO if you can help it, right? Because they're on call 24/7, 365, day and night, right? Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, whatever. They're the only one. We actually have vCISO at my company, funnily enough, but we have a group of eight people. I started a peer group 5 years ago. We have 20 people in that peer group, and most of them are of organizations that have defense and a number of employees, so that if I'm the first CISO to be on call for you, there's a second and a tertiary one. That's important for you to ask about because you don't want to have that critical emergency in the middle of the night and not be able to reach your CISO. That would be very unfortunate. I've never heard of that happening, not in our company, not in any of the companies in my peer group, but it's a valid concern for the single CISOs or vCISOs. That's one of the benefits, frankly, of being part of a CyberHoot vCISO is that you're not on call 24/7 by yourself. And that comes into play not only for responding to incidents, it also comes into play with questions that you haven't seen before. Let's be honest. I don't know everything that could be out there from a cybersecurity perspective, but I know who to ask. And I have a body of people who I can just send a quick email to and say, has anyone ever dealt with this situation before? And I'll get 5 answers back. And then I can follow up with questions. And so I'm bringing, the wealth of literally hundreds of years of cybersecurity experience to bear on a client that might be paying me for, 3 hours a month, $800, $1,000 a month.
Okay. Yeah. Do you think there's ever any animosity between virtual CISOs and real sort of in-house CISOs? Are they kind of like, oh, you're just playing the field?
Well, we rarely come into contact. I would say that's like
Yeah.
matter and antimatter. If we were to touch, we could explode, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't. I've never been asked to come in and audit another CISO's work. If there's a
Hmm.
CISO in place, they either are doing the job well or they're replaced with another CISO. If they think they can afford and have and they support a direct full-time CISO, then
Hmm.
it's that. If there's a competition for CISOs, I'm just not aware of any way that that's sort of played out. Most small to medium-sized businesses, 500 employees or less, a few $1 million in revenue or less, they just haven't ever, there's been an IT guy who's also doing security, right? Is the AV up to snuff? Yes. Okay, we're fine. Wait a minute. No, we have a firewall, right? Yes, we have a firewall because they're answering their cyber insurance questionnaire once a year, right? And so they're trying to look at all the check boxes, which by the way say awareness training, phish testing, all these technical measures are in place. Backups are encrypted. They're offline. There's a 3-2-1 backup methodology, 3 copies on 2 mediums. One is offline. Those kinds of things that the IT guy can do some of that, but never done a tabletop to practice
Hmm.
a security incident process that hasn't been written. There's no guidance on a vulnerability alert where if there's this level of critical vulnerability, we have to stop what we're doing and go remediate it before we're exposed. I can tell you some horror stories there. But yeah, so I don't think there's too much head to head with real, like a full time CISO versus a virtual CISO.
Hmm. Yeah, that's good. It's good to know. Um, it sounds like a lot of the things on that list that would typically happen upon, the initial kind of evaluation when working with new clients covers off, your typical cybersecurity frameworks and
Mm-hmm.
essentials, and then obviously around the personnel side of things. What can a vCISO or any CISO for that matter do around creating a culture of cyber awareness within an organization?
Storytelling is great. Storytelling is a wonderful starting point paired with some awareness videos, right? The awareness videos, if you do them right, they can alert you to all manner of cyber threats that we face. We did a video this year called Ishing Attacks, ISHING, and it's meant to cover a lot more than just phishing. Phishing is the number one, but you might get an SMS text from a hacker about an unpaid toll. In the US, it's exploded. Like I've gotten 3 of them.
Yeah.
Almost everyone I've talked to has gotten one. It's called smishing.
Hmm.
Another is vishing. Somebody could call you up on the phone and with just a snippet of your CEO's voice on a podcast like this, impersonate you and it sounds just like them in real time. 11 Labs can do that and they don't have any real protections against, pretending to be the CEO saying, "Hey, I need you to go buy gift cards and I need you to scratch them off. I'm at a conference. I want to give them away. Send them to me." And that's phishing, voice phishing. There's another one I'm forgetting, quishing, QR code phishing. I think we talked about this briefly.
Yeah, we mentioned that.
All these different ishing attacks. We did another video on financial fraud. During a disaster, hackers come out of every corner of the earth to say, "Donate to my relief fund." Dating websites. There's something called catfishing where you pretend to be someone until they're hooked on you and you have an accident, a car accident, and you need money sent to you, right?
Yeah,
There's all
the
kinds of scams
honeypot.
along those. Yeah.
Yeah, there
So that
certainly
helps
are, and
create the
there's
culture.
a training around that. Yeah, there's certainly a lot of examples of breaches. I think Arab was one of those examples where somebody impersonated the CEO, or even like the CEO got phished, and it was a pretty sizable transaction
Mm-hmm.
that got
And those are going to grow in
extorted.
frequency because the cost of doing deep fakes is going way down. And just so everyone on this you probably already know, but deep fakes are taking a voice and an image and turning it into a person and having it read or speak in a real time as though they're that person. So I could be talking to a fake Vitali who's interviewing me right now
I'll do
with
the
deep
hand
fake
test.
technology. Yeah, there you go. That's right. How many fingers do I have?
Yeah, all
Right.
my fingers are there.
Yeah. So
All
that's
six
that.
of them.
Yes.
Fantastic. Yeah. You mentioned we don't want to use these fear-based tactics, and there's the traditional like we'll just send an email to our employees to try and catch them out, so to speak.
Hmm.
Is there any more kind of a fun way to do this, or any platform where we can have an environment in. I'm kind of referring to either gamification or LMS, like learning management systems.
Yeah. Well, again, that's exactly what we've built at my company. We've built gamification into everything we do. So as you complete assignments, whether it's a video, a policy, like a password policy that you read and sign off on, or a phishing simulation, you get points. And these points go to your avatar. And you start off as this really cute little owl. We're an owl, right? And it's a baby hatchling in a nest. Then you go to the next level up, which is a fledgling. And then from there you go to a more mature owl, and then eventually you get some armor and might even have a sword in the highest level of cyber maturity. So these avatars are part of our gamification and reward system. As you complete assignments and you grow your maturity, you get these avatars. Does it work? I can tell you our support gets emails from end users going, my colleague's a little ahead of me. How is that possible? We have to tell them that, well, your colleague did their assignment on time and they got perfect score, and you had 2 attempts and you were late, so you got fewer points. And then they're like, oh, I won't ever do that again. But it helps boost the compliance because
Mhm.
everybody's competing. We've even created a game around this Hootfish challenge. The Hootfish is our phishing simulator that walks you through 6 or 7 components, but we created a challenge that has a countdown timer and a leaderboard, and you can do it within a company. You can do it as a prospecting tool. You can do all these different methods with it, but people get excited. I was at a trade show, and one employee of a company, actually not one, 2 or 3 of them came back to the booth multiple times surreptitiously when their colleagues weren't showing, to try and hop up to the top of the leaderboard and do a few more phishing simulations. And what's the outcome of that is everyone has fun. People are learning through, without knowing they're learning, they're learning the rubric, right? If phishing has 6 or 7 components, think of them as puzzle pieces. Once they complete these gamified phishing simulations, they're putting those puzzles together to create a crystal clear picture of what phishing is and how it works. So I like to say you have to teach your employees how to fish to feed them for a lifetime. If you send them the negative reinforcement, fake email phishing tests, you're feeding them maybe for today. And all bets are off if it's a spear fish or a good fish, because they're still going to.
Yeah, sounds like a hoot, certainly with the with the. Sorry, I had to put that one in there. Yeah, I mean, it almost sounds a bit like what Duolingo do with the language learning, except I did hear some bad reviews about how the whole kind of gamification in Duolingo and the frequency of the notifications, where the bird or the owl or whatever it is constantly badgering you, like, have you studied today? Do you, do you get much of that? Do people kind of go, oh, it's my cybersecurity awareness training owl badgering me again about this phishing link?
We do, but typically it's the employees who haven't done their training. See, when we're sending these as assignments, we only send it once. If you do it, communication stops for a month, right? But if you don't do it, we do remind you in a week. And then in another week, we remind you and we copy your boss, your manager on that. And in another week, we send it to HR. So yeah, people get frustrated when we've reported them, but we've sent them 4 notices and they could have stopped it at any time. So it's really only an initial onboarding first month or two that
Hmm.
happens, and compliance suffers until they realize their manager's going to find out that they didn't do this 3 minute, 4 minute, or 5 minute exercise. So
Hmm.
second, third months and beyond, everyone does their training, and we love seeing 100% compliance on all the assignments for that reason.
That's good. Yeah. Certainly good to have everyone completing it and everyone covering all the bases. I was just thinking back to you mentioned that there was a proliferation of those smishing messages going around the US,
Yes.
and I remember there was actually a string of those that went around the UK as well, because they were all tied to like Royal Mail or delivery services. So it would
Oh,
say like
yeah.
they know that you constantly getting packages, right? So or sending stuff. So then they would say you need to pay like £1, like or $1 to release the parcel, or
Or we
like
need you to confirm your address because we can't deliver this. We know who you are, but we don't know your
that's it.
address.
That's it.
These
And
are all
these guys were sending out hundreds of thousands of these SMSs,
automated.
and I think all automated. Actually, could have been even a young guy, like like a young hacker who was behind all of this to begin with. Obviously, then it caught on, and there were copycats and so on. But yeah,
Yeah, these things all happen. But you know what you're doing here? This is going back to your earlier question. How do you build cyber culture at your company? You tell stories like this,
mm,
right? Your vCISO can see the different exposures or even a breach that happens at other companies and share it with you and say, hey, you're in manufacturing. I also work with another manufacturer who had a ransomware attack. And here's what they did. Here's how that got in. Do you not want to you don't want to make the same mistakes? And here's the story genericized because you can't reveal details, but the storytelling really, I've often said this, Vitaly, and let me know if you agree. Cybersecurity is kind of like the emperor has no clothes on, that old fairy tale. He's walking around town naked and doesn't know it, and he's all proud and happy with what's going on. Cybersecurity is the antithesis of cybersecurity is we don't know what we don't know. And therefore, we can't realize how naked we are online. That's the whole purpose of cyber literacy is to say, hey, if you do these simple things, adopt a password manager, understand how to phish, and then a few patching and, hardware related things, you're going to be way ahead of your neighbors and the company down the street and more difficult to hack. Nothing's impossible to hack. Any company can be hacked. The FBI in the US and I'm sure MI5 in the UK says there are two kinds of companies: those that know they've been hacked and those that don't know they've been hacked. So we have to plan for it. We have to prepare. We have to make ourselves more difficult to hack than our competitors out there.
it's kind of the Wild West, isn't it? Still, there's just so much going on and so much to keep on top of, especially not just as a regular citizen, but then as an employee as well. And of course, in this day and age, we're all working hybrid in the office or completely remotely. So there's that intermingling of devices where you
Mm-hmm.
potentially store either personal or company data. So it's an absolute gold mine for hackers if they target the right individual. Not to mention, cases where it's just an in-person hustle. Somebody targets them. They just say, "Okay, yeah, give me your phone." On the street at knife point, and Face ID, unlock your phone, and that's it. Device stolen, and everything's there. So yeah, it's the world we live in, I'm afraid. But and
I have
it's only getting more complex with all AI
in
and all
some
that, isn't it?
respects, in some
Yeah.
respects, but it's still the same attacks all along. This the phishing and
Hmm.
the password hygiene and those sorts of things. There are some newer attacks that are quite unique. I can share one of you that we blogged about last week if it's appropriate. Would you like to hear about one of the latest and greatest methods hackers are breaching us?
Go on. Yeah.
So there's a plug. How many use extensions in your browser? I know I do. Okay. Do
Yes.
you use extensions? Very specific ones that you trust, right? We do. We
Hmm.
we validate the extension. Well, the Play Store and Google Play Store and the App Store both had extensions that had polymorphism built into them. They were malware. They would purport to do something, and they did it. They did it rather well, but they would listen. And when you installed it, it said you would be asked to grant permissions to this to manage plugins and to manage permissions. And if you said yes to those things and you had a password manager installed as a plugin, it would sit there and wait for you to attempt to log into something. And it would say, let me shut down your 1Password account or your password account, whatever it was. It's a plugin for the browser. Let me change my icon to that password manager. It actually, this is the polymorphism of the plugin, the extension. So you could, and there's a video of this. There was a research firm called Square, SQRX.com. I think they did the research on this, and they videoed the plugin going from, whatever it did to the 1Password plugin. And then suddenly, because it killed your password manager, it would prompt you with a log back in. But it also asks for your secret code, which it will never, ever, 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 ever do. Once
Hmm.
you've done it once, that secret code is put away in a safe and you never bring it out again. So it asks for your username, your secret code, your password. It was a ruse. It was impersonating the password manager, and it then stole all your credentials because it had everything it needed to log into your online account. Horrible, horrible security mistake there, right? If you fell for it. But there were telltale signs. You should never ever have to provide your secret key. And if you watch closely, the apps were changing their skins, chameleon like. That's a new one. And, Microsoft and Google try to take not Microsoft, Apple and Google try to take them out of their app store when they find them,
Hmm.
but they get in there for a short period of time. So that's one attack. I can go on. I have other attacks that have happened. If you want more stories, I'm happy to tell.
Yeah, I mean, the stories are great, but they are putting me on edge. After the call, I'm definitely going to review all my extensions and
And the
wipe
permissions.
and the permissions and wipe my Google password manager.
That's one. No, I don't. Yeah, this was a legitimate password manager, but it was
Yeah.
very well impersonated, and the screen was identical. You can go to our blog to see about it if you ever want to, cyberhoot.com/blog. We write every week. Another one that we saw recently was a gentleman that I support. He called me in a panic. He says, somebody's logged into my bank and my email account. I don't know how. So we
Hmm.
did some digging. After a course of a few hours, we found out that he had been subscribed to hundreds of mailing lists without his permission. They'd gotten his email address off the internet and they'd subscribed him to hundreds, literally hundreds of email addresses, email mailing lists, newsletters. Things were popping in from all over the world in different languages. It didn't matter. It was Arabic in one case, it was Cyrillic, it was this, it was all kinds of languages, French, English. And he started to unsubscribe. He took the email, went to the bottom, and clicked the unsubscribe link because he couldn't handle thousands of emails in his inbox every day, and he had to get rid of this
Hmm.
stuff, right? And one of them was booby trapped with what we call an evil proxy token thieving website. So
Hmm.
what happens is you have a session token. When you log into your email, you provide the credentials, maybe even multi-factor, and it gives you a little session token that says Craig Taylor is in his email account and he's good to go. Every time you call a new email or do something that requires your identity, it gives the session token instead of prompting you to authenticate with multi-factor and all that stuff again. But those session tokens live inside your computer, inside your browsers in a particular file. And this individual is also happened to be logged into his bank account at that same time, and there was a session token for the bank. So once he clicked on that malicious link in the unsubscribe, it was a rewritten unsubscribe link. It went into his computer, took his banking token and his email token and gave it to some hacker out on the internet who immediately logged in and started trying to transfer money. Now he was in a bank where multi-factor prevented the transfers and they monitor and they called him on the phone to alert them that we think your your bank account's been compromised. We're going to reset your password, shut it down right now. No money's been transferred, but someone tried to. Then another phone call came into him while I was on the phone with him. He says, "You're emailing me invoices that I've never seen any of this. I think you've been compromised. Your email
Hmm.
account. You need to reset your password there." And he was like floored. He couldn't believe it. This was a targeted attack, but it wasn't a direct attack. It was indirect through these one unsubscribe link out of hundreds that were in his inbox. So my advice to anyone listening to this, well, what do I do, Craig? Market spam. Most of these newsletters that he got did not ask him to verify he wanted the newsletter. That's the general netiquette. You subscribe to a newsletter, it says, I don't know if you're a human or not, so I'm going to send you an email to your inbox that you have to click on to validate A, you did subscribe, and B, you are who you say you are. Then we'll start sending you information. Most of these, mom and pop newsletters all over the world never did that. So unfortunately, I say market spam for two reasons. One, it'll teach those other, newsletter providers to verify the address, which is first a very critical thing. Second, it blocks it from ever coming again. So you're achieving your purpose of unsubscribing by blocking that domain name from ever bothering your inbox again, giving them a bad reputation score by marking it spam, which no one wants to have on their domain. And it hopefully cleans up the internet of these not unethical, but inappropriately configured newsletter sites. And
Uh,
it prevents you from clicking the potentially malicious link.
it kind of also makes me wonder what happens when I click the report phishing email on my Outlook or or Gmail or something like that. I mean, does anyone actually review that, or does
Oh,
it
there's
just kind of,
automated
yeah,
systems. It's
yeah,
not even a human reviewing it. If it's
no, of
spam, they
course,
can take a look at it and say, "Oh
yeah,
yeah, this domain does not match the real
yeah,
domain," and they'll give it a negative scoring automatically. Yep.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think there needs to be a part two to this, and you I think you mentioned that you were listening to a previous one of our podcasts with Amy Stokes Waters at the
Yes.
Cyber Escape Rooms. So we could even do a kind of, a three-way and, compare what you both are seeing in the space, share some more stories, I think.
I would love that.
And I think in the meantime, where can we find out more about CyberHoot? And, if anyone is looking for cyber awareness training, where can they find out more?
Well, I'm happy to report that for this podcast, we're giving away some free training to any individual. If you're an individual, you want to get the 101 of cyber literacy skills into yourself, go to cyberhoot.com/individuals. You'll get a series of 6 emails, 6 videos that cover the cyber literacy 101: an introduction to hackers, password hygiene, multi-factor, social engineering via phishing, password managers, and I think Wi-Fi security. So all 6 of those videos are like the foundational, bare minimum, essential knowledge. And then you'll also get one of our Hootfish emails that walk you through the good behaviors you need to have with an open book. It's not going to fail you, and you get to take it as many times as you want, and you can learn exactly what you should be looking for to create that rubric to follow in your inbox. And we know it works. People report confidence, efficiency, and security in their inboxes after going through that. So that's free of charge. If you'd like to book some time with us, I think there'll be something in the show notes, but you can schedule a meeting with us from cyberhoot.com. And if you want specifically to learn about Hootfish, there's cyberhoot.com/hootfish.
There you have it. Fantastic. I'll certainly be spending some of my free time going and making use of that free training. Thank you very, very much, Craig, for joining us on the call today.
Vitaly, it's been my pleasure. Thank you for having me.